who helped bring Trump into office. Bannon is like, look, our base is on Medicaid. And what's interesting, I think, as you get a realignment here of, rich people are becoming Democrats. The biggest thing is splitting the parties now is education. A lot of more affluent folks are becoming Democrats, but they still want, these folks who are wealthy and becoming Democrats have, I think, some sort of nostalgia for government doing things like providing healthcare. And then you have becoming Republican, right? I mean, that realignment, and those people want their healthcare. So, interesting realignments.
Yeah, how can anybody justify our deficit, which is the amount of money we spend over and above the amount of money we take in, going up above $3.5 trillion? It just that makes no sense to your fiscally conservative Republicans. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
I'm going to quote Uncle Steve to Uncle Steve.
Yeah.
What's a politician's number one job?
To get elected.
What's their second job?
To get elected.
Yeah,
I have said that in certain rooms, and people call bullshit on me. They say it's not true.
Absolutely true.
And I don't argue the point. I just let it sit. But it always has been true. It always will be true.
And Steve, there are no votes in deficit reduction. Not a lot, anyway. I mean, that's not something people vote on. You get votes giving people programs or giving people tax cuts or giving people... You don't get votes by saying, guess what? You're not going to get what you want, but I'm going to lower the national debt. That gets you no vote.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, and nobody's talking about it except me, in that Trump lied over and over and over again when he campaigned on he was going to eliminate taxes for those on Social Security. And as I said at the open, it was as recent as Thursday, a day and a half ago, where he said 3 times that people on Social Security, 90%, were not going to have to pay taxes. And it's a total lie. It's total bullshit. But anyways, we'll move on. Violet, good morning. It's a pleasure to see you, and thank you for doing the heavy lifting.
Hey there, Steve.
Hey there, Violet.
How'd your 4th of July go?
My 4th of July went very well. I stayed close to my dog. We watched the fireworks from the backyard, and regardless of all the restrictions and all of the threats from the mayor of everybody, people, I think they colloquially called Los Angeles the illegal fireworks capital of the country. I don't know. They were going on all over the place.
Okay, well, my neighborhood in this area is maybe second because we had our own personal fireworks show. We didn't have to go anywhere. It was wonderful, and I got to go swimming and hang out. It was a great 4th of July, so glad to be here this morning and looking forward to the show.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Let's say hello to Dr. James. Dr. James, good morning. Thank you for doing the heavy lifting.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So just kind of listening to this, I have a couple of comments already. So one thing, this trope that you use, Steve, about the person on the couch, eating their food stamp money away, that's and you're aware of this, that's an old kind of quasi-racist trope that came out.
Sitting on the couch eating potato chips.
Well, they used to eat bonbons, right? It's like a welfare queen.
Okay.
And that's what you're referring to. And I would recommend or suggest or maybe just highlight the fact that, you're skating thin ice when it comes to kind of a level of insensitivity that I think has been addressed countless times, that is just not really the case. Because even with some...
Really?
Well, let's look at it like this.
Sure. Look at it any way you want. Go ahead.
Thanks. So if you've got someone, let's say I've got a few kids and I'm collecting $300 per dependent, right? Every new dependent over 0 is someone that I'm caring for. So that in and of itself is work. Okay, that's not nothing, right? I mean, you're not just sitting on the couch eating bonbons. I mean, it's like saying, every stay-at-home mother is, lazy and does nothing and waits for, their partner's check, their husband's check, whatever, to come home and bring home the bacon.
Well, if their husband is working, they're bringing in an income.
Well, but what I'm saying is, if you look at the person themselves, there is no qualitative difference between someone who is taking care of their kids, you know, and receiving money from the state, or taking care of their kids and receiving money from their partner, when you look at the individual in question who's taking care of someone. So let me just put it this way. You can say whatever you want. I didn't like that comment. I thought it was highly insensitive and actually not. I think that's a better way of putting it. Just to respect, you know.
No. And I'm glad you said that. And I will put it a different way right now. If you are able to work, you should be working. Okay?
So you don't believe in stay-at-home mothers.
Let me finish. Yeah. If you are able to work and you're not working, then you know what? Maybe you should be off of assistance. Maybe you shouldn't be getting food stamps. Maybe you shouldn't be getting welfare.
I don't know if I'm in the matrix right now. Can you just confirm whether you've
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So I have a few comments.
Sure.
So yeah. So it sounds to me like you don't believe that, you know, essentially, here's what I'm hearing you say. If you're a party of one and you're able-bodied, then I want you out there working to earn your benefits, right?
Yes.
And there are limits. Okay, I hear that. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I could be moved in a direction of being compelled by that argument if we dug into that one a bit deeper and kind of worked it out in terms of the minutia, because on its face, I'm not seeing a whole lot wrong with that, as you know, when you use the qualifier, if you're able. But I mean, as soon as you throw a kid into the mix, I mean, I really think that becomes a very, very fuzzy surface area.
Well, let me ask you this. If you have a whole bunch of kids and you can't find childcare, or the father of your child is not putting in their support, what stops you from staying home and retraining yourself, getting vocational rehabilitation, learning a new trade? What stops you from doing that?
Well, you know, luckily in 2025, with the advent of online universities and whatnot, things like that are becoming easier in terms of access.
My point exactly.
Okay, well, look, I'm not an all or nothing kind of guy. I mean, I'm trying to. I'm actually trying.
Yeah, I can tell you are trying to be conciliatory, and the first point you made was totally valid. Which why I said, you know what, you're right. That was a demeaning comment, and I'll say it a different way. You're right there.
Okay, so I'm again, I think it would be, and maybe now is not the time, and this is something that I in my own time will probably dig into a bit because I want to understand this better. But essentially, you know, those are things that, yes, they have merit. The issue here is that what the requirement is, it's 20 hours a week, right? That's 80 hours a month. And the issue with that as a minimum is, you know, if, depending on how many dependents you have, that becomes increasingly challenging to carve out. Even when you're going to school, I mean, if you're going to school full time, then you say you're going to school full time, and you know, I think you count your study hours into that equation, hopefully. But I mean, even when you're going to school full time, I mean, a class in and of itself is typically like 1 to 3 hours long. And so if you're taking, you know, 4 to 5 classes, plus if you can calculate in some study time, I mean, I'm just saying it can be, you know, if you're talking about raising kids and going to school, this becomes also its own sort of challenge in terms of thriving. Though I get what you're saying. I mean, you can find ways to meet that employment
quota. Work. You find ways to make it work.
Right, and so yeah, I mean, I think there might be some potential good that could come out of organizations that help people who need to meet their quota serve a particular function in society, even if it's volunteer hours, because those do count as well.
That's right.
Maybe some nonprofit organizations will be born from a potential new pool of people who are increasingly motivated to get out there and kind of quote unquote lend a hand. So I mean, I hear that part of it as a potential. It hasn't happened today, but maybe people are imagining that's what might happen in the best possible of all worlds. So anyway, so that's kind of my comment about that. The only other thing I wanted to say for the minute was a comment about who are these people sort of quote unquote cheating Medicare and Medicaid. And I did a talk about this earlier in the week in reference to this case in Texas that came out.
If you were listening, the comment that was made earlier by Scott is he didn't think people were really cheating Medicaid. That's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, so just this week, I mean, this is pretty insane. Just this week, the Department of Justice had a whole press announcement about this huge amount of fraud that they found in the Medicaid system. There were
just clarify, not Medicare, but Medicaid, correct?
No, that's fair. I want to give you.
And I'll tell you why. Because most of these types of press releases on fraud are Medicare, not Medicaid. But I don't know what you're referring to.
Okay, hold on.
Sure.
I mean, if you're asking exactly, okay, so, okay, so Justice Department's nationwide dragnet spanning 50 federal districts, 12 state attorneys general, 324 defendants, including 96 licensed clinicians, has surfaced an ocean of schemes from bogus telemedicine consults to prescription opioid mills. Federal teams froze more than $245 million in cash, crypto, Bentleys, beach houses, CMS algorithms running hot stock over $4 billion in payments before
CMS is Medicare.
Yeah, I know, I understand. So, so basically, this is called Operation Gold Rush. They claim that they found more than $10 billion in fraudulent claims. I'm looking for the specific. I know CMS is Medicare, so it's probably Medicare related, but.
Yes.
And there are fraudsters all over. My point was that I really wanted to focus on was that a lot of the fraud happened, offshore internationally. And there were whole sort of rings of people who were local here who facilitated fraud by groups outside of the U.S. that were then committing the fraud, creating fake accounts. And this is pretty, I mean, from what I understand, they were saying this is happening with state benefits as well. I just don't think Operation Gold Rush was their focus. But this is not something that only Medicare is a target of. I mean, this is something that there's unemployment's been a target of too in California, as well as I believe probably Medicare. Though I can't pay my receipts on that, so I'll keep that comment off the table for now.
All right. I totally appreciate that. Thank you very much for your contributions. Let's say hello to Alfonso. Alfonso, good morning. Thank you for doing the heavy lifting. Alfonso might be busy IRL. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
To be here.
It's good to have you here.
Yeah. I really appreciate the pushback and the sensibility that Dr. James brings, because
and I acknowledge that. It was a rude, demeaning comment, and I immediately acknowledged that and rephrased it.
Yeah, as a Hispanic, as a Bolivian, I don't see that. It's culturally very American to, it's many things that happened in the U.S. that created a culture of consent, of diversity, awareness of racial discrimination and toxic masculinity and what have you.
Laziness and taking advantage of the system. Yes, please continue.
And I'm an 80s kid. I was born in the 70s, but I grew up in the 80s. And I really enjoyed the crass humor that we used to see in movies where you had, you were breaking all the rules. These things didn't age well. But I think it is a new paradigm, and we are catering for people's sensibilities. So it's important to be aware of these things. And I want to say, in the privacy of my home, I like to watch these films where they make fun of my people, your people, their people, the males, the females, the gays, everyone. I think it's good to be able to appreciate these cultural changes in good humor. So it's good to have all perspectives. So I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Alfonso. Let's say hello to Cora. Cora, good morning. It's a pleasure to see you back on the show. Thank you for doing the heavy lifting.
Hey, good morning.
Hi.
I'm back from the beach.
You went there early, or did you go there for a couple of days?
Last weekend.
Yep. I know I heard you say you're off to the beach, but I didn't know if it was, the entire weekend or whatever.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, it was the entire weekend. So. Yep, and I'll just kind of chip into the last conversation. When I was in college, I worked for a student-run nonprofit, and what we did is we worked with non-traditional students, basically, like people that had started college later, had kids, lived off campus for other reasons,
like
things
Dr.
like that.
Jane.
Yeah, exactly. And it was right in Clinton's Work First initiative, right?
Who, by the way, was the last president to achieve a balanced budget? Bill Clinton. Go ahead.
But what I wanted to point out is that there are things that people miss about the utilization of welfare. So, first of all, most people that go on welfare are on it for, I'm sure the average has changed, but I used to know this back then, an average of 7 months total in a lifetime, and they never go back on it again. So it's really a stopgap measure, and I'm talking about not food stamps, but TANF, right, the temporary aid for needy families, and so they're not on it for very long. Some people are on it for longer, some people are on it for shorter, and that's why it's an average. And some people are on it for a lifetime, but it's actually nowhere near being the majority of people that are on welfare. It's like a very, very, very small percentage that are on it for a very long time. The other thing is that during the Work First initiative, when